Season 1 of Outlander begins in 1945, where the nurse Claire Randall reunites with her husband Frank after they both spent years apart serving the British Army in World War II. During a trip to Inverness, Scotland, while Frank is recounting history with his old friend Reverend Wakefield, Claire visits the standing stones of Craignadoon and is transported back in time to 1743. While there, she falls in with a group of Highlanders from the clan MacKenzie. The group is led by War Chief Dougal MacKenzie, who was also the brother of the MacKenzie clan's laird Colum MacKenzie. Also in the group are the boisterous best friends Angus and Rupert, the lawyer Ned Gowan, the kind-hearted and brave Jamie Fraser, the nephew of Colum and Dougal who takes a liking to Claire, and Jamie's godfather and closest friend Murtagh. Dougal's men were all Jacobites, men supporting the movement to restore the Scottish allied House Stuart to the British throne, and so they spent their time trying to rally support through money and soldiers to their rebellion. This rebellion meant that the Highlanders were constantly pursued by the British Redcoats, led by the viciously cruel Captain Jack Randall, an ancestor of Claire's husband Frank. Jack has a history with Jamie, having previously violently lashed him, covering his back in scars. When Jack demands the British Claire be turned over to the Redcoats, Dougal tells her the only way to protect her is to make her fully Scottish, which could only be done by marrying a true Scot. And so Claire and Jamie get married. And though at first this was simply an arrangement to ensure Claire's protection, Claire and Jamie do quickly fall in love. When Claire reveals to Jamie she was from the future, he believes her and takes her back to Craignadoon to return to her original time and her original husband. But Claire decides to stay in 1743 to be with Jamie. She also warns Jamie of her knowledge from the future that the Jacobite rebellion would fail and their army would be defeated in the catastrophic Battle of Culloden. Claire also meets and befriends a woman named Geillis, who was the pregnant mistress of Dougal MacKenzie. She was plagued by rumors of being a witch, but Claire discovers she was also a woman from the future. When a young woman named Leary, obsessed with Jamie since she was a child, accuses Claire and Geillis of witchcraft, the two women are put on trial. Geillis is found guilty of witchcraft, and the last Claire sees of her, she's carried away to be burned at the stake. Jamie then takes Claire to his home in Lallybrook, where his sister Jenny has married his childhood best friend Ian. Jamie and Claire make an attempt to live a happy, simpler life, but that all comes to an abrupt end when Jamie is captured by the Redcoats. Claire teams up with Murtagh, Dougal, and the others to storm Whitworth Prison and save Jamie. While in prison, Jamie is cruelly tortured and raped by Jack Randall before his friends arrive to save him. In Jamie's rescue, Jack is presumed dead. Knowing that Lallybrook was no longer safe for them, Jamie, Claire, and Murtagh set sail for France, where Jamie's wealthy cousin would take them in. Claire also reveals to Jamie that she was pregnant. The two also conspire to change the future by stopping the Jacobite rebellion in order to prevent the Battle of Culloden and save the lives of countless men. In Season 2 of Outlander, Jamie's cousin has left him in charge of his house and business while away on errands. And so Jamie and Claire find themselves mingling with the rich and powerful of Paris as they secretly try to sabotage the fledgling rebellion. After telling Murtagh about Claire's true identity and future knowledge, he joins their cause. Jamie becomes a close friend and confidant of the British Prince Charles Stuart in Paris to secure funding from the French king for the Jacobite cause. Unbeknownst to Charles, Jamie is constantly trying to sabotage his political maneuvering. During Jamie's various dealings, he meets a young orphan pickpocket who he takes in and names Fergus. Also trying to secure Jacobite support is the Duke of Sandringham, who Jamie had a prior history with. The Duke was known to play both sides, having promised and reneged on pardoning Jamie in Scotland and enabling the horrific behavior of Captain Jack Randall. Upon meeting the Duke's goddaughter Mary Hawkins, Claire recognizes the naive and meek woman to be the future wife of Jack Randall and ancestor to Frank. While walking to a party at night, Claire, Mary, and Murtagh are attacked by masked men, and Mary is raped. The encounter traumatizes Mary, and Murtagh blames himself for not protecting the women. When Jack Randall arrives alive and well in France, Claire makes Jamie promise not to seek revenge until after Jack fathers a child in order to assure the Randall bloodline and lead to the eventual birth of Frank. When Jack rapes Fergus, a furious Jamie breaks his promise and challenges Jack to a duel to the death. During the duel, Jamie stabs Jack in the groin before the fight is broken up by French officers who arrest Jamie. The stress of the event causes Claire to tragically have a stillbirth. Upon her recovery, Claire visits the French king and offers him her body in exchange for the release of Jamie and a pardon issued for him in Scotland. Upon Jamie's release, they return to Scotland with Murtagh and Fergus in tow. After their failures in Paris, Jamie realizes that if he and Claire were going to attempt to change the future, he wanted to change it by winning the Battle of Culloden. And so Jamie joins in with Prince Charles and the Highlander army to reclaim the throne. After reuniting with his old friends Angus, Rupert, and Dougal, Jamie spares the life of a young British soldier named John Grey who promises to one day repay this debt. The Jacobite army then fights their first battle at Prestonpans, where the Highlanders are victorious, but Angus dies from a cannon blast. After the battle, Claire is captured by the British and taken to the estate of the Duke of Sandringham, who is continuing his Weasley ways of trying to play both sides. Jamie and Murtagh arrive to rescue Claire, who in turn recognizes the Duke's valet as being the man who had raped Mary in Paris. Upon the Duke's true nature being revealed, Murtagh beheads him, getting his vengeance for failing to protect Claire and Mary previously. Mary kills the valet, and the group escapes the estate. Mary becomes engaged to Jack Randall's kind-hearted brother Alex and becomes pregnant with his child. When Alex falls gravely ill, he asks Jack to marry Mary in order to ensure she and her child were looked after. With Jack marrying Mary and claiming her child as his own, the bloodline to Frank Randall was ensured. Also falling gravely ill is Colum MacKenzie, who arrives at the Jacobite camp on the eve of the Battle of Culloden. His dying wish is to ensure his young son Hamish, actually fathered by Dougal, was to become Laird, and that Jamie would serve as Hamish's guardian and leader of Clan MacKenzie until the boy came of age. This obviously infuriates Dougal, but Colum dies before he can get his years of bitterness off his chest. On the morning of the infamous Battle of Culloden, Claire and Jamie are desperate for a plan to stop the Jacobite massacre and decide their only option was to kill Prince Charles before the attack could start. Dougal overhears this plan and confronts his traitorous nephew. Dougal wants to kill Jamie and Claire, forcing Jamie to kill his uncle Dougal. Now resigned to his fate during the oncoming battle, Jamie takes Claire to Craignadoon. He knows she is pregnant once again and that he would die in battle, meaning sending Claire back to her time to raise their child with Frank was for the best. Claire resists, but Jamie insists. And so Claire travels back to 1948 to reunite with Frank, while Jamie and his fellow soldiers march on to certain death. In the future, Claire and Frank reunite and move to America to raise their daughter Brianna. 20 years later, Frank has died in a car crash and Brianna is now an adult with no idea that her real father was a Scottish Highlander from the 18th century. Upon the news that Frank's old friend Reverend Wakefield has died, Claire and Brianna travel back to Inverness. Brianna strikes up a relationship with the Reverend's adopted son Roger, revealed to be the descendant of Dougal and Geillis, who gave birth before being burned at the stake. Roger and Brianna then discover the truth about Brianna's lineage. At first, Brianna is upset with Claire for lying to her entire life, but when Roger discovers that Jamie actually survived the Battle of Culloden, Brianna forgives her mother and gives her blessing for Claire to travel back in time to reunite with her true love. The start of Season 3 of Outlander reveals what really happened during the Battle of Culloden. The Redcoats decimate the Jacobite army as Claire foretold, but Jamie does receive a small victory on the battlefield, crossing paths with Jack Randall and killing the villain once and for all. A critically injured Jamie is rounded up with the rest of the wounded, including Rupert, to be shot by the British soldiers. And while all of Jamie's comrades, including Rupert, are killed, Jamie is saved by Lord Melton, whose younger brother was John Grey, the British soldier Jamie had previously spared. To repay that debt, Lord Melton spares Jamie's life and returns him home to Lallybrook. Jamie spends the next several years in hiding and mourning Claire as the Redcoats continue their search for the infamous Red Jamie. When British soldiers confront Fergus over Jamie's whereabouts, the young boy refuses and has his hand cut off in retaliation. Jamie helps mend Fergus's wound and resolves to have his sister Jenny turn him over to the British to protect his family and allow them to receive the hefty reward money placed on his head. Upon his capture, Jamie is sent to Ardsmuir prison, where other Scottish soldiers, including Murtagh, were being held. Luckily for Jamie, the now adult Lord John Grey is placed in charge of the prison. John and Jamie become friends, and John even develops romantic feelings for his prisoner. Eventually, the prison is shut down, with Murtagh and the rest of the prisoners being sent to America to serve as indentured servants for 14 years. John decides to help his new friend and parole Jamie, sending him to work for the Dunsany family at the Hellwater estate. As years pass, Jamie becomes a faithful servant for the Dunsany family, who are unaware of his true identity as a leader in the Jacobite rebellion. rebellion. The eldest Dunsany daughter, Geneva, becomes engaged to an old earl whom she doesn't love, and upon discovering Jamie's true identity, blackmails him into taking her virginity. Geneva marries the earl but becomes pregnant with Jamie's child. Geneva dies in childbirth but has a son named Willie. The earl wants to kill the child due to it being a bastard, so Jamie kills the earl to save his son. To reward Jamie for saving the baby, the Dunsany family offer Jamie a full pardon, which he at first refuses in order to continue working at Helwater Estate to be near his son no one knows is his. As several more years pass, Willie's resemblance to his father is growing more obvious, and Jamie makes the difficult decision to accept his pardon and leave the estate. Lord John Grey marries Geneva's sister Isabel and promises his friend Jamie to raise the boy well. As more years pass, Jamie finds himself living in Edinburgh under the name Alexander Malcolm. He runs a smuggling operation and owns and operates a printing press business which also secretly prints and distributes treasonous writings. Working under his employ are the now adult Fergus and young Ian, the son of Ginny and Ian. And that's where Jamie is when Claire finally travels back in time to reunite with him. The two lovers fall right back into their old ways and recount to each other everything that's happened to them over the last 20 years. Claire tells Jamie about their daughter Brianna, and Jamie confesses to Claire that he had fathered a son. And just as it seemed they were going to settle into their new lives together in Edinburgh, the villainous customs officer Sir Percival sends his men to investigate Jamie's business, finding his treasonous pamphlets and burning the business to the ground. And so Jamie and his family return home once again to Lallybrook. Upon their arrival, it's revealed that Jamie had recently married Leary, the young woman who's been obsessed with him for decades. In the intervening years, she's been twice widowed, so Jamie agreed to marry her to look after her and her two daughters, Joan and Marcelly. Jamie seeks the assistance of his old friend Ned Gowan to secure a divorce. For the divorce settlement, Leary demands a steep price. Luckily, Jamie had heard about the location of a hidden treasure while serving time at Ardsmuir Prison. So he, Claire, and young Ian go to find the loot. When retrieving the treasure, young Ian is captured by pirates. Jamie and Claire secure passage on their own ship and recruit a crew, including Fergus and Marcelly, to track down the pirates and save young Ian. On their journey, Jamie gives his blessing for Fergus and Marcelly to marry, and even allows the orphan Fergus to use the name Fraser. Eventually, the search for young Ian brings the crew to Jamaica, where Lord John Grey has recently been appointed governor. After a brief and happy reunion between John and Jamie, Claire discovers that young Ian's captor was in fact a very much alive Geillis, revealed to have been saved from burning at the stake by Dougal MacKenzie. Geillis believed in a prophecy that would put a Scottish ruler back on the throne and would do anything to fulfill that prophecy. And what does that prophecy entail? The sacrifice of a 200-year-old baby. Upon reuniting with Claire and learning of her travels back to the future, Geillis realizes that Brianna was the sacrificial baby and attempts to travel to the future to make that sacrifice. Jamaica has its own time-traveling location, a cave called Abendawe. As Geillis plans to sacrifice young Ian in order to travel back to the future to kill Brianna, Jamie and Claire intervene, killing Geillis and rescuing young Ian. With their matters in Jamaica resolved, the crew hops back aboard their ship and sets sail for Scotland. But things don't exactly go as planned as their ship gets caught in a storm and crashes, washing them up on the nearest shore. Their location, the American colony of Georgia. Season 4 of Outlander sees the Frasers having a bit of a rough start in America. After helping an escaped criminal named Stephen Bonnet evade the authorities, he returns their kindness by robbing them of their valuables, including Claire's wedding ring. When Jamie and Claire visit Jamie's Aunt Jocasta at her home in River Run, she offers to give Jamie her entire wealth and plantation, but not wanting to be slave owners, the Frasers turn the offer down. Instead, they accept an offer from Governor Tryon, giving them 10,000 acres of land to settle in North Carolina, in exchange for converting Scotsmen into British loyalists. As time passes, Jamie and Claire build themselves a home and call their land Fraser's Ridge. Also settling in the land was young Ian and Fergus and Marcelly, who welcome a baby named Germain. The Frasers also become friends and allies to the neighboring Indian tribe. The trouble was that finding fellow Scottish immigrants to settle in Fraser's Ridge was easier said than done, as the British taxes were criminally steep, leading to no one wanting to accept the offer and be indebted to the crown. A rebellion group known as the Regulators were taking up arms and preparing to fight for what was fair. The leader of the Regulators was none other than Jamie's godfather Murtagh Fitzgibbons. The reunion between Murtagh and the Frasers was a happy and celebratory one, though being on opposite sides of the Regulator cause did complicate things. Later, Lord John Grey pays a visit to Fraser's Ridge, bringing along Jamie's secret son William. Jamie is able to reconnect with Willie after years apart, although the boy still doesn't know the truth about his lineage. Meanwhile, in 1971, Brianna and Roger's relationship was a bit complicated. Although never officially dating, Roger has fallen deeply in love with Brianna and wants to marry her. Feeling strongly for Roger but not wanting to move too fast, Brianna turns down his proposal but still wants to pursue a relationship. A bitter Roger wants all or none of Brianna, and the two part on bad terms. Brianna then discovers that her parents eventually left Scotland and settled in North Carolina, but died in a house fire at an unknown date in the 1770s. Determined to warn her parents and save their lives, Brianna flies to Craignadoon and travels back in time. When arriving in 1768, Brianna comes across many familiar faces, including a scornful Leary and a kind-hearted Ian, who gives Brianna the money necessary to sail to America. Before taking off, Brianna meets a young woman named Lizzie and takes her on as a servant to live a better life in America. Back in 1971, when Roger discovers that Brianna traveled back in time, he visits Craignadoon to go chasing after her. To get from Europe to America, Roger becomes a crewman on a ship captained by Stephen Bonnet, unaware of the man's villainous nature. Upon arriving in North Carolina, Roger and Brianna are reunited and Brianna finally accepts Roger's marriage proposal. They have their own handfast wedding ceremony based on Scottish tradition, and after consummating the marriage, Roger confesses to knowing about the deaths of Jamie and Claire. This causes a huge argument between the newlyweds, and a distraught Brianna tells Roger to leave. She then crosses paths with Stephen Bonnet. After noticing that Stephen had Claire's wedding ring, the villain offers the ring to Brianna for a price before violently raping her. Brianna is then finally reunited with her mother and meets Jamie for the first time. She only confides in Claire of her attack at the hands of Stephen Bonnet, and also reveals that she was now pregnant with a baby that was most likely fathered by the villain. When Roger arrives in Fraser's Ridge to reconcile with Brianna, Jamie mistakes him for Brianna's rapist and beats the man to near death, then has young Ian sell him to the Mohawk tribe that was passing through on their way to New York. Upon learning what happened, Brianna furiously confronts Jamie. Jamie, distraught and ashamed, vows to track down the Mohawk and rescue Roger. And so Jamie, Claire, and young Ian set off on the months-long journey to New York to save Roger. Brianna is sent to live with Aunt Jocasta, and Murtagh and Fergus are tasked with finding Stephen Bonnet and bringing him to justice. When Fergus and Murtagh find and apprehend Stephen Bonnet, they are caught by the authorities. And though Stephen Bonnet was a wanted man now in custody and set to hang, so too was Murtagh for being leader of the Regulators. Fergus is allowed to leave and returns home to Marsley to plan Murtagh's prison break. At River Run, Aunt Jocasta fears for Brianna's reputation if she were to be an unwed mother, and begins lining up potential suitors to marry her against her wishes. When Lord John Grey arrives in River Run at Jamie's request to look after Brianna, Brianna proposes to him, trusting her father's faithful friend to keep her safe and away from other suitors, while her parents sought to bring her true husband Roger back to her. She also resolves to not be ruled by vengeance and has John take her to Stephen Bonnet's prison so she can forgive him. After discovering that he had fathered her child, the imprisoned Stephen Bonnet offers Brianna some gems to help pay for the child's upbringing. And just as Brianna and John were paying Stephen a visit, Fergus and a crew of regulators break into the prison to set Murtagh free. As the group escapes, they set off explosives to help cover their tracks. The last we see of Stephen Bonnet, he's struggling to escape his chains before the prison explodes. Meanwhile, Jamie, Claire, and young Ian are in the midst of a months-long journey to rescue Roger from the Mohawk. Along the way, Claire learns about Ottertooth, a now-deceased member of the Mohawk tribe that had traveled back in time with other Native Americans from the future in an attempt to rally their ancestors against European settlers. Upon arriving at the Mohawk camp, young Ian emotionally decides to trade himself to free Roger. As Jamie and Claire leave with a battered and bruised Roger in tow, young Ian is forced to go through the Mohawk gauntlet, which he passes and is accepted into the tribe as a full member. On the journey back to North Carolina, Claire informs Roger that Brianna had been raped by Stephen Bonnet and that she may be pregnant with his child. Roger, needing time to process whether he wanted to stay in the 18th century to raise a baby that might not be his, decides to part ways with Jamie and Claire to give the situation some thought. At River Run, Brianna gives birth to a son, Jimmy, but is heartbroken when her parents arrive without Roger. As the group prepares to return to Fraser's Ridge, Roger arrives at River Run professing his love for Brianna and accepting the baby as his own no matter who the biological father was. But of course that happiness can't last forever, over as Jamie receives a letter from Governor Tryon instructing him to find and kill Murtagh, leader of the Regulators. In season 5 of Outlander, Brianna and Roger are officially married, but the celebrations are short-lived for the Fraser family as Jamie is officially called on by Governor Tryon to join the English army and lead a militia to hunt and kill Murtagh and the Regulators. Jamie rallies a Scottish militia and appoints Roger as his captain, all the while urging Murtagh to flee for safety. But Murtagh is an idealistic man who continues to rally his Regulator forces against the British. Murtagh also tries to convince Jocasta to marry him, but despite her love for Murtagh, she marries a more suitable match instead. The tension reaches a boiling point when Jamie's militia is forced to join together with the British army to fight the Regulators at the Battle of Alamance. Brianna remembers this battle from history and warns Jamie that the entire Regulator army would be killed. Roger is sent behind enemy lines to warn Murtagh to turn back. While in the Regulator camp, Roger is attacked by his ancestor, Buck MacKenzie, son of Dougal and Geillis, over a misunderstanding involving Roger and Buck's wife, Mhor. Despite his best efforts, Jamie is forced to lead his men into battle, donned in full red coat attire. During their victory over the Regulators, Jamie desperately hopes that Murtagh is not amongst the casualties. On the battlefield, Jamie is attacked by a Regulator but saved by Murtagh. Unfortunately, one of Jamie's loyal militia shoots Murtagh, unaware of Jamie's relationship with him. Jamie rushes to his godfather's side and Murtagh dies in his arms. With the battle over and the Regulators defeated, a bitter Jamie informs Governor Tryon that his duties had been fulfilled. And now that the battle was over, the Fraser family realized that Roger had never returned from the Regulator camp. They find that Roger had been mistaken for a Regulator by the British troops and hung with the other Regulator survivors. Fortunately, the Frasers find Roger in time to save his life, but the ordeal greatly traumatizes him. As Jamie, Claire, and their family settle back down in Fraser's Ridge, they discover that Stephen Bonnet was still alive and was working with Aunt Jocasta's shady lawyer Gerald Forbes to claim Jimmy as his own. And since Jocasta plans on giving Jimmy the deed to River Run in her will, this would make Bonnet and Forbes very rich. When Forbes attacks Jocasta for giving away too much of her fortune to the Frasers before he can get his hands on it, Jocasta's loyal servant Ulysses kills him. And when Bonnet kidnaps Brianna in an attempt to take Jimmy as his own, the Frasers arrive and have him arrested. Bonnet is sentenced to death by drowning, which was his greatest fear. Before he drowns, Brianna arrives and shoots him in the head, leading Roger to ask if the act was done for vengeance or mercy. All season long, Claire's been trying to bring medical practices from her time to the 1700s. She successfully develops penicillin, has modern needles and syringes crafted, and trains Marcelly on how to be a doctor. Claire begins to write medical advice under the pseudonym Dr. Rawlings that goes against the common practices of the time. Eventually, Claire's medical advice accidentally spreads to the local newspapers. Young Ian returns home to Fraser's Ridge, having left the Mohawk tribe after losing his wife. The Frasers revealed to him that Claire, Brianna, and Roger were from the future. Now that Jimmy was old enough for his parents to confirm his ability to time travel, Brianna and Roger say their goodbyes to Fraser's Ridge and head off to a nearby group of standing stones. When Roger, Brianna, and Jimmy attempt to pass through the stones, they fail. Roger and Brianna take this as a sign that they were meant to remain in the 1700s. When they return to Fraser's Ridge, they discover that Claire had been kidnapped. A local man named Lionel Brown had gathered his men to kidnap Claire after discovering that she was the mysterious Dr. Rawlings. They strongly opposed the anachronistic advice which went against their beliefs and gave autonomy to women. Amongst Lionel's group is a man named Wendigo Donner, who was amongst the group of Native Americans that had traveled back in time with Ottertooth. Claire begs for Wendigo to save her, but he refuses out of fear for his own safety. Lionel's men viciously gang rape Claire before Jamie arrives with the men of Fraser's Ridge to save her. They slaughter Lionel's men and take the leader back to Fraser's Ridge for questioning. While there, Marcelly uses the medical knowledge taught to her by Claire to kill the villain. Jamie takes Lionel's body back to his brother Richard, the mayor of Brownsville. While Richard acknowledges that Lionel got what he deserved, he also makes a veiled threat that Jamie would also suffer the consequences for his actions. And that's everything you need to know before watching season 6 of Outlander. Let me know some of your favorite moments from the series so far, but I think we know what some of your favorite moments were. Like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe to this channel for more content like it, and that does it for me in this video, but I'll see you in the next one.